magic mountain, above the troubles far below. Somewhere off in the distance, I let it go, I let it go. Once upon a dream I stumbled in a nightmare of my own. I raged against the rain and thunder. I didn't know to let it go, let it go. The only change in the universe happens deep inside. No matter how sweet or how adverse, just be satisfied, satisfied.
Speaking on Let It Go, extra the original, a visit about the soul Pacific for the lyrical peace in the deep silence. So I keep writing, my struggle and stress suppressed by my freestyling. From these islands, we live relaxed with patience. Let the raising, this place is straight amazing. So why you uptight? You got a rough life? Just let it go, man. You get only one try.
Today, the city and county of Honolulu, and in fact the entire state of Hawaii, imports over 80% of its food. But in truth, that figure is closer to 95%, because the production of food that is grown here is almost entirely dependent upon imported fuel, imported fertilizer, imported chemicals. We are highly dependent upon a global distribution system that brings us our food and the means to grow food from faraway places. We are on tenuous life support, and climate change raises the stakes. This extreme dependency does not become obvious until an event strikes that interrupts the flow of goods in the global supply chain. We know such events are both natural and man-made.
Here's one of the papayas from our yard in the front, which I'll show you the tree actually in a little bit. I'll cut it open. Check it out. It's so beautiful. And the avocados and the collard greens over here, they all come from the yard.
Prior to Western European contact, Hawaiians had abundant agricultural systems that were completely independent of imports. Homes and villages were surrounded by food forests that provided ample food within walking distance. This still remains true in many of our insular and territorial communities.
So beautiful. And some ginger and Olohana that we're going to use later. And this, you gotta look at this. This is a air yam, a dioscorea that grows in the trees. It's really cool. It's kind of like a potato.
We can learn from these traditional systems developed over countless generations. As Dr. Failau Tusi Avengaleo, a traditional leader of Samoa, says, resilient communities are ones that learn from the past, design the lessons into the present, and pass them on to the future.
All right, here's our little papaya tree, and I just wanted to show it to you because in this garden there are so many different kinds of plants, and they're all growing really close together in this 10 by 25 plot right outside the kitchen. And in a state of emergency, we would have food for about 4 days maybe, right here. And so the papaya is growing next to the taro, which looks really beautiful. You can see down there. There's sweet potatoes all next to it. And there's oregano and mints, and they're all growing very densely, which is keeping out a lot of other weeds. And they're actually feeding each other, like this pigeon pea back here. This one is actually like a mulch plant. It also produces food and beans, but we break off the branches every so often and put a little pile underneath the papaya, and that feeds the papaya plant.
Indigenous practitioners of agroforestry have a deep knowledge and capacity to relate to the natural world. This depth of knowledge is not found in our university systems. These are the true masters of relating to the natural world in a sustainable way. When the stakes are high, we need to play our best hand. We need that knowledge. Our urban living environments today produce very little food. In fact, some subdivisions in Hawaii prohibit growing fruit-bearing trees. A Western European relationship to the environment has become one of observer rather than active participant. We have become accustomed to landscapes that are grown for their ornamental value rather than for production of food, medicine, or other materials.
So you work with what you got. We're going to figure out what we got here today, and you can do the same at your house. This is some kind of dead tree with a vine growing all over it, which I think there's a use for this vine, but maybe more as a ground cover. So we may plant a different vine that's fruiting all over this tree. This bush here, I've heard tell that you don't actually want it near your house because the ground termites love the roots and will probably move into your house next. So that one's probably going. Coconut, Samoan, I think it's going to stay short like this. We're going to ask the previous owner about that. A cactus, I guess diversity. Diversity is good. This is also growing on the western side, which is usually the more arid side here. We'll keep it, maybe. Oh, look at what's in here. A pipinola, also known as chayote vine. A great green to eat and also produces fruit that we can cook up and put in soups. We'll keep it for now. Yum. Beautiful little shoots.
Victory Gardens, virtually interconnected community tree gardens, presents Homegrown Food Security and the Homegrown Food Security Project. Emergency food for a family of 4 for 4 to 6 days in the event of a natural disaster. This is a DIY, do-it-yourself, web-based supported, internet supported, self-learning experience. Shelter in place, food in base with your Victory Garden, virtually interconnected community tree garden.
So I wanted to point out that in this new subdevelopment, all the planting was ornamental. There's no food trees here. In an emergency, none of these trees are going to produce any food for any of these people.
So these new subdivisions with their purely ornamental landscapes are really just mirroring the image given by hotels and resorts, that is a picture of success. That is what success looks like. However, in the case of an emergency or natural disaster, this is not successful at all.
These plains were covered in koa and food forests. Then they got cut down, turned into sugarcane plantations, and now you can see that they're being built up concrete jungle. Here we go again.
And these subdivisions, these housing developments, have many hard surfaces. The rooftops, the streets, the sidewalks, they're hard surfaces. They create a different environment. So this changed environment has changed the way nature functions here. So there are beekeepers up here on the mountain that have been raising bees for decades, and they've seen a change over time as the subdivisions moved up the mountain and changed the environment. So at one time they had 3 flows of honey per year, and now they only have 1 flow of honey per year. And that's a significant change from the past.
This is a curry bush that the leaves are used to flavor a whole bunch of different Indian curries usually. That's what my grandmother grew up feeding me, so I feel really connected to this plant. And back here is a kaffir lime bush that we're going to keep pretty small as well. There's green onions right here in these gutters and little seedlings here that we're starting up, and it's really nice to have them near the kitchen so we can keep an eye on them and keep them watered. Papaya seedlings and pigeon pea seedlings, and we've got some rosemary here another pigeon pea, some Jamaican mint, this bush right back here that's leaning against the calamungai tree that we're keeping really small. There's ava in the back there, and ferns on the ground, oregano, tea leaf, aloe, Olena under the ground. You can't really see it right now, but probably in the next month the new shoots will be coming up.
Ornamental landscapes frequently cost tens of thousands of dollars to install, hundreds of thousands to maintain. When we think of growing food in an urban environment, we often think of vegetable beds. Temperate vegetable crops demand high inputs of labor, water, and fertilizer. While they may be productive, most people don't have the time to maintain a vegetable garden. We learned some interesting lessons about localized food supply during the 2009 tsunami disaster in Samoa.
A lot of our Asian farmers, they're bringing a lot of vegetables, a lot of cabbages, beans, and things like that to the stores. The local markets, roadside stands, they've gotten a lot bigger than they were before.
As in Tutuila, we found agroforesters, farmers, and permaculturalists taking advantage of the natural landscape and their homegrown food forests to feed the population during the first critical 96 hours. It should be obvious, the greater the local and regional food capacity, the lower the burden on emergency services will be. Homegrown food forests create capacity to feed families and communities independent of the risks to commercial food production and distribution systems. An area as small as 1/10 of an acre can produce a significant source of food with moderate maintenance requirements once established. This creates baseline self-sufficiency in times of need as well as for everyday subsistence. Food forests are as individual as the people who cultivate them. A traditional Polynesian home garden contains dozens of fruit, nuts, starch, spice, medicinal, and culturally significant plants. Perennial leaf vegetables and culinary herbs can be maintained as shrubs and hedges, and some are quite attractive. Many of these perennial plants can produce for 20 years or longer, with a small fraction of the labor required to grow temperate vegetables.
I just wanted to reiterate that this is a 10 by 25 foot plot and that every single family dwelling in Honolulu could have something just like this.
My name is Cliff Naiole. No Maui mai ko hana paliku Waihe'e. Raised on this island of Maui near the cliffs of Waihe'e. And my grandfather taught me a lesson when I was a child. You know, he said there will be a time when the great huli will come to these islands. And like the fingers, he says, the most important people on this earth will be the fisherman, the farmer, the hunter, the gatherer, and the medicine man. And he says, you look at the lima, all these fingers work together. If you put the lima down this way, you can always dig a hole, you can kanu your seed, cover them up, you can pull out the crop. The only time you turn your head this way is to give to your family. So with that in mind, we're just waiting for the great huli to come. And it's very important, I believe, that we give our people, not just the white people, but the people of Hawaii, a fair shake in having some type of self-sustenance in their yards, in their communities. And if you define the word community, you know what it's all about. It's sort of community associations. But to be able to have a plot of land where you can depend upon yourself to grow these things, so that when the great huli comes, at least we'll be prepared in a short sense and have that ability to depend upon each other. Because I may have this crop here, my neighbor may have another one. And if we look at it like the types of ahupua'a from before, that's what they did. They all depended upon each other. So why can't we do it in modern days? We can, absolutely can. Food sovereignty for our people grow what the DNA of the land accepts, not what we forced on its throat. I think that's crucial. And you know, medicine, all these things come under food. All these things come under food land. You know, it comes all of this aina, that which feeds us. So for those who have the opportunity to grow, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer situation. So hopefully politicians, if you're out there listening, give us a chance to be self-sustainable. And it takes the pressure off of you, because when the great huli comes, be responsible for all people. Let some of our people be responsible for themselves, at least to get ourselves off the ground and be self-sustainable at that time.
Yo.
Thank you.
This little section has a lot of endemic plants. There's the la'i, the ava, the hau back there. There's a little ohia tree that's waiting to go in the ground, and the uala and the olena right here in the corner. There's endemic ferns behind me, and if you look closely, you'll see that this looks like a forest floor. It might look like chaos to the untrained eye, but this is actually a collaboration between humans and what naturally occurs in the forest.
High upon a magic mountain, there's a peace you'll come to know. Come and join us on that mountain and let it go, 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 let it go. Let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go.
Internal force effect, external experience, so serious, yo, my mind smiles, hearing this, I fear a miss, indecisions of life, cause still sound minds wrong for living it right.